Oh, Those Space People is a podcast series of casual cosmic conversations with people working on exciting space projects. Today, we have Antonella Gambati with us, who is the lead space systems engineer for human spaceflight with OHB System, one of the leading aerospace companies in Europe. She is currently based in Bremen, Germany, and has 20 years of experience in the space sector. Antonella, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Rashana, to invite me to this interesting podcast session. So, Does Space People is really an exciting title because it means that you will collect several interview and several talks with people coming from a different space field and business with different routes. So I'm really glad that you give me this possibility and be the first one. Let's see.
So, Antonella, you studied aerospace engineering in Italy, and this was about 20 years ago. Could you tell us what led you from there to your current role as a systems engineer?
Yeah, at that time, was the 94, I applied to aeronautic engineer in Naples because aerospace engineering not yet existed with this combined name. So I got a master degree in aeronautic engineering with a major in space, and was the years of the ISS, building up and the first experiment, and everybody feel like a pioneer to make some experiment for the crew for long term planning. And so I moved from Naples to Milano, and I started to work for Laben, that now is called the Thales Alenia Space, about 10 years. Always performing payload development for biology or life science area. So one of the first payload that I made was this mice drawer system, that is an Italian special payload that win all the record of permanence of mice in space, and the other type of biological experiment. And then in 2011, we moved to Bremen. Our son was 1 year old, to join a new adventure because also HB System was looking for engineer with experience and heritage in this type of development. And since that moment, I'm involved in the human spaceflight activity at OHB, that we are focusing on developing always payload for ISS, but also start planning a new activity for the moon application. So starting from the lunar orbital platform up to building up moon base using additive manufacturing. So the set of experience linked to the development of a technology for LEO orbit has been used as background to figure out which type of technology or change you have to do to withstand a more harsh environment, like should be Moon or Mars later on, or any other outpost in space that is beyond the low Earth orbit application.
That's quite interesting because you worked on a lot of ISS projects and you're also with very intensely involved with the human spaceflight activities at OHB. So can you tell us how are human spaceflight missions and robotic missions different from each other, from conceptualization to execution?
First topic that's different, let me say, that come up to my mind is the safety aspect. Because in this case, you are developing hardware that not only has to withstand in space, but need to be operated in the safe way by the crew. And so your hardware should be also safe and proper usage. You cannot accept a failure that can compromise the structure or can create an injury to the crew members. So this is really important. So the very different is when you are going to select the technology, for example, flammability is one of the most important aspects that you need to analyze, because if you are in a habitat environment, you have oxygen, so there is all the condition that allow a flame to a fire to propagate. And then these require a lot of additional effort, let me say, in the qualification process and in taking care. For example, battery, the simple battery that we are used to also in our end, the lithium ion polymer rechargeable that we recharge every day at home more than one time. And so seems like a normal procedure. On ISS, there are several hardware, some camera, iPad, tablet, laptop, and more items are coming up due to the commercialization. So try to spin in some devices that you normally use on Earth to make them usage, adapt them for space. You can imagine that you need to qualify this battery. Anyway, you have to prove that this battery will be safe also during recharging, because such operation should be done without the crew attendance. So crew is involved in another activity. The station is quite big because you are not always the controller among all the modules, and so you cannot be in panic that you are recharging a normal laptop and then you have a continuous monitor. So this is for sure safety, one of the most important aspects, including EVA and IVA activity, so internal and external to ISS, because a sharp edge can cut the crew suit and then you can have a disaster, it's a catastrophic condition. I don't want to say that human spaceflight and robotic mission are different. I think they are complementary, because most of the mission also planned now would make use of interaction between the crew and robotic, like the idea to have this lunar orbital platform that remotely from this safe side, the crew can pilot and drive a rover over the moon surface and use the rover, the robotic part, more like a sort of a scouting to explore area that can compromise the safety and the well-being of the crew. So at the end is always all linked in one loop. So when you need to explore a place that you don't know, the idea was not send the human first, no? So try to take advantage of the technological gap that have been reached up to now with all this development to use a robotic mission to support also managed mission. In this case, the crew can take a decision according to what he can see, quite, let me say, in real time, and add this special human touch to the mission itself. Because I think that any robotic application will be cool, clever, and self-decision making, but human are always able not only to perform a mistake, but also to give and add the value in the interpretation of the data.
Ah, that's interesting. Because, for example, SpaceX, the crewed launch of SpaceX to the ISS, when it took the astronauts up there, they basically had a touchscreen and then it was completely automated, right? So you talk about giving more control to the crew. And so what trend do you see here? Do you see human spaceflight missions in future giving more control to the crew or to the ground station in automating the way SpaceX did?
And this is exactly the big issue that we will have with the mission beyond the LEO orbit. You cannot delegate the ground station to take a decision. You need that the crew have a supporting tool to help a decision-making process of unpredictable event as well. So, for example, in case we are on a moon base and you have a problem with the one of the life support system there or a critical part of your mission, you cannot wait, like happens sometimes for ISS, that the ground base provide you element to withstand and overcome the problem that appear. In this case, you need to take a decision. But how to take the correct decision in short time? That is the part where machine learning and big support of the data management system can help. So we can develop a tool, a little bit like the Internet of Things, no? That you can create a cloud that collect all the data on of the different subsystems, and can help to elaborate, predict, make forecast if something is going to fail, if there are anomalies. So I think that the crew will be not only more like the executor of experiment, keep maintenance like it's doing now on board of ISS, but in such a challenging long-term mission, the crew become really a decision maker entity that cannot rely always from the ground, because maybe the ground will be not available on time to react correctly. But to do that, we have to give them all the tool, and these come from this IT area, in my opinion. And more element and more technology we can integrate in support, better the decision will be.
So you are a systems engineer, right? But you also have a management degree alongside your aerospace degree. So is that necessary for someone who wants to become a systems engineer? And what is the career trajectory to become a systems engineer? And what are the specific skill sets, if any?
Yeah, I would say that I am a system engineer, but I am also project manager at HB. So for some, due to that ISS payload are not so big budget payload, and so you have a project that allow you to integrate several picture, several profile in the development, because a budget and time frame are really short. We want to now maximize the use of the next decade of ISS, try to fly as much as we can in short time. This means that you have always to have a good background, what meaning handling a project, what are the risks, but also financial point of view that you can figure out when you are performing your project. So I made an MBA diploma, was about 2 years in Italy. And I suggest everyone that want to be a system engineer not to be focused always only on the technical aspect, but consider also programmatic aspect, budget schedule, risk assessment, risk management area. This is an important background that can be developed. If you are in a company, sometimes they offer training for multi-purpose type of routes of your career, or you can do also independently with your own certification. On the same side, this is my point of view, because there are several philosophies behind. For me, a project manager for such a type of application should have a technical background, because I'm not for a decoupled role, system engineer, project manager. They need to have a common background to develop a common language, a common vision of the project, and then is the best way to manage the project, because you cannot just delegate to the project manager, schedule, budget constraint. He will always tell you, you have to do on time, and the system engineer will tell you, no, we want to do perfect, we need to work still a lot on it to make really more robust. No? So this type of trade-off between the mission success, budget, programmatic aspect is really the key aspect, I think, for all the mission, not only human space flight, but when the budget and time are limited, this become even more important, because you can go easily in overrun, or you don't meet the launch for the upload payload. Even if on ISS we have several launch per year, because they are not alone, but this has a lot of implication programmatically, financial, also the agency side. So it's really important, in my opinion, to if somebody would like to have a system engineer career, mainly to complement it with the management aspect, with some basic that give you this additional tool and skill to judge the project also from another perspective.
Okay, that's very interesting, because I always thought, as in most companies, there are separate people, there are separate roles, project management and system engineering. But yeah, I never thought they would be so interconnected. So that's very interesting. But somehow we always have, so a lot of space companies you look at, right? They prefer project managers, and a lot of project managers in space companies are not always people with space background or experience in the aerospace sector. Yeah, yeah, that's
Yes,
it's.
this happen. I think this happen a lot mainly to the satellite mission because in general the large system integrator for satellite mission needed to handle a lot of subcontractor and there are several key components. So there is more interesting and important the part that help to handle with all these subcontractor. So you have a system engineer, maybe for each area of the satellite subsystem, and then the project manager has to be more the facilitator to support that the project itself is going on track and in terms of quality, schedule, budget. So it's more like a director of orchestra, let me say. So for small payload, it's like you are play the guitar and give also a highs on who is playing a piano, no? So it's something like that. So, and if there is a problem, maybe you are able also to play a piano as well. All need to have his own boundary conditions. So I think that for a large mission, a large satellite project, it's important to have more ability to manage and solve conflict, solve big team discussion. So there are a lot of soft skills that need to be elaborated because the team is composed by different parts of the company plus a lot of subcontractors. In our group, we are 10, so we communicate anyway continuously. So there is not a hierarchy very strict. Everybody is a complement any mission that we have and any payload according to the competencies. So it's very normal for us to run 2-3 different projects totally in parallel. So one from human physiology with one of physical science, and in the meantime you are developing an additive manufacturing with lunar simulant. So it's really something that never boring. That I can tell. I think that a human space flight give you many for this experiment is not a serial production, no? It's not like satellite that you have the big company specialized in solar panel, OCS, and so on. Here you need always to think that each experiment will be unique because it comes from a science need. And you sometimes, if you are lucky, you can make use of hardware that you developed in the past. But anyway, you need to do some customization, downscaling or upscaling, change some parts. So it's a continuous development. It's not just procuring, integrate, and we stand with the mission, with the new requirement, but allow you to develop also this skill to talk with scientists because they need to validate your hardware on ground before the launch. And without this validation, even if your hardware on the paper is fully compliant to all the technical specification, you will not fly.
Yeah, I mean, I always thought space is cool, but human spaceflight is is cosmic cool, I guess. So great. Antonella, what is the best way for students or, budding space professionals to reach you?
Yeah, they can find my profile on LinkedIn, who is a lot of professionists or students also contact me for internship at OHB. We support also the Erasmus program in the past. Before the Corona situation, we had several students. So as soon as we see that there is a possibility, we always try to figure out in our team or in other team this opportunity. Now we are a little bit limited, so the plan for next year are unclear. For the time being, all these internship cannot be performed, and so we are a little bit in standby. But we hope strongly that from next year we can start again to to integrate the student in our team, in our department, and so they can really have a real experience of the business. The other difference was that when a student come to have an internship with us, we are, I don't know, with the European Space Agency performing a project in general was always for the additive manufacturing for the moon. And so they come also with us to a stack to make the presentation. They join the project review. So I give them the floor to present their activity. So I will not take over. I would like that they really experience also the day to present, see how is the European Space Agency. So our internship have been really to make the person as a part of our team. So they were always happy and they would like always to be back. And this for sure is one of the most important aspects that people feel followed, the people receive feedback, people can figure out somebody that can provide some tip or link or advices, even if it's not always easy, but have time to share with the other your experience, give your suggestion, and they can decide if they want to keep or not. I think is a duty for everybody that is doing this type of activity, and not only in general, because how the new people, the new generation can support us and later on take our place if we don't transfer the knowledge. They cannot just learn by scratch, live there on the floor, do this task, but it's a duty of the people in the business from long time to try to transfer as much as they can their know-how. So I'm really glad to do that. I'm also make a special lesson thanks to the International Space University in Strasbourg. So one per year, I do a lesson for the Master Space Study. And so there they can always reach and they can see also which opportunity on industry side can be planned.
So we were talking about project management and system engineering and the people in these roles having to interface a lot with the local supply chains. So how important is the local language? Because as far as I know, space industry is quite international. You know, the language is mostly English, but these roles, do they need proficiency in local language?
In our case, for the ISS payload development, in my case here in Germany, the knowledge of German is not so mandatory. Also because you have to write all the document in English, the crew is trained in English, and the English is the official language. I don't have a special supply chain on the local base, you know. And also due to the geographical return, the European Space Agency project are always composed by a very multicultural team. So at the end, English is the mandatory one. To integrate a better team communication, sometimes it's important to have German, in my case, as a good background because you can communicate better inside your structure. You can be more integrated, let me say, during the meeting. But in our team, we are 3 Ausländer. We are defined, 2 from Italy and 1 from UK. The rest are German, but is always English speaking because most of the people are used to work for ISS so long time that at the end for them it's better to report in English than in German native mother tongue. And same for me, I'm not able to write more good mail in Italian. I always made a sort of macaronic English, Italian with English or German words. So it's, I think that all languages are really an asset, but is not something limiting your opportunity. Moreover, in human space flight, there are a lot of Italians. So sometimes I can take advantage of my native language to have a more direct communication, let me say, with some subcontractor, also with the agency itself. So is beautiful, because you feel a part of a so patchwork community, and language is not really, really limiting. What is important are the skill and the added value that you bring to the project. That can be done with any language you prefer.
Yeah, I also find the European space scene especially quite interesting and very enthralling because of how multicultural it is. You're all speaking in English, but it's very, very multicultural. Yeah, I absolutely love that. Thank you so very much for all the interesting insights into human spaceflight, and thanks for being on the show.
Thank you, Rashana, and I wish you a lot of success with the next guest.